Britain was on the brink, its skies filled with the deafening roar of enemy planes as they pushed ever closer, aiming to break the spirit of a nation. But behind the scenes, guiding Britain's defense in this crucial moment, stood a man whose name might not be as celebrated as other wartime figures but whose impact was immeasurable: Sir Hugh Dowding. Known to some as the architect of victory in the Battle of Britain, Dowding's strategic mind and unyielding resolve would forever shape the outcome of World War II and change the course of history. Born in Moffat, Scotland in 1882, Dowding's early life gave little indication of the greatness that awaited him. His journey began with a quiet childhood, marked by intellectual curiosity and a disciplined nature. He joined the British Army in his 20s, and although he was originally drawn to the cavalry, Dowding soon found himself captivated by the potential of aviation, which was then a relatively new field. This fascination with flight would be the first of many steps leading him to a pivotal role in Britain's defense. Dowding's rise was not without obstacles. Known for his direct and often reserved nature, he did not fit the mold of the traditional military leader. He was thoughtful and meticulous, preferring to rely on careful planning rather than theatrics. In the years leading up to World War II, Dowding held various positions within the Royal Air Force (RAF), where he tirelessly advocated for a strong, well-prepared air defense. While others pushed for more bombers and offensive tactics, Dowding remained firmly focused on fighter aircraft and radar technology, innovations he believed would be essential for defending Britain from an air assault. By the time war broke out, Dowding's convictions were put to the test. Appointed as head of RAF Fighter Command, he found himself responsible for the protection of British airspace at a time when German air power seemed unstoppable. As Germany's Luftwaffe prepared to launch its aerial assault on Britain, Dowding faced enormous pressure. Political leaders and even some within the military doubted his methods, questioning his insistence on defending the skies with a fighter-centered approach. But Dowding stood his ground, resolute in his belief that Britain's survival depended on an organized and resilient air defense. His efforts culminated in the Battle of Britain, one of the most intense air campaigns in history. Dowding's vision for air defense, known as the Dowding System, combined radar, ground-based spotters, and efficient communication networks to track and intercept enemy planes with precision. This innovative approach allowed the RAF to respond swiftly to Luftwaffe attacks, conserving resources while delivering powerful counterattacks. It was a turning point in the war, and against all odds, Britain held its ground. Dowding's tactics, which were once questioned, now proved crucial. Britain's skies remained unconquered, and his foresight saved the country from an imminent invasion. But success came at a personal cost for Dowding. The very qualities that had enabled him to devise Britain's defense strategy also set him apart in ways that did not sit well with the political and military establishments. Known for his uncompromising stance and sometimes solitary approach, Dowding faced criticism from fellow officers and government officials who saw him as inflexible. Despite his remarkable success in the Battle of Britain, he was quietly moved from his position at Fighter Command soon after the battle ended. His contributions, while acknowledged, were often overshadowed by others more favored within the establishment. In the years following the war, Dowding's legacy endured. His innovations in air defense and radar technology would set the standard for military aviation for decades to come. However, his contributions went far beyond technological advancements. Dowding's story is a testament to the power of conviction, to the courage of one man who, in the face of relentless opposition, stood by his principles and safeguarded his country. So, we ask ourselves, what might have happened had Dowding not persisted in his vision for Britain's defense? Would the skies over Britain have remained secure without his unwavering focus? As we reflect on Sir Hugh Dowding's life and legacy, we honor a leader whose dedication and sacrifice gave Britain a fighting chance when hope seemed distant. His story reminds us that sometimes, it is the quieter figures, those working away from the spotlight, who have the greatest impact on history. Sir Hugh Dowding's early life began in the quiet town of Moffat, Scotland, where he was born in 1882. Growing up in a traditional British family, his upbringing was shaped by the values of discipline, duty, and a strong sense of national pride, qualities that would come to define his later military career. His father was a schoolteacher, instilling in young Hugh a love for learning and a sense of intellectual curiosity, even as he lived in an era when few could imagine the rapid advances in technology and warfare that the next few decades would bring. Dowding's childhood, though marked by a modest lifestyle, was foundational to his future resilience and resourcefulness. As a boy, Dowding attended St. Ninian's Preparatory School, where his keen intellect and quiet determination became apparent. He was not one to seek the spotlight, and his reserved demeanor often set him apart from his more boisterous peers. But beneath his quiet exterior lay a powerful drive to excel, a drive that led him to attend Winchester College, one of Britain's most prestigious schools. At Winchester, he distinguished himself academically, yet he was equally drawn to sports, particularly skiing and mountaineering, which would later fuel his fascination with aviation. This blend of intellectual and physical pursuits created a foundation for his multifaceted skills, which would become crucial during his years of military service. After completing his schooling, Dowding faced the decision of choosing a career path. Despite his father's background in education, he was not inclined toward a purely academic life. Instead, he felt a pull toward the military, which offered structure and a clear path to leadership. In 1900, he was accepted into the Royal Military Academy at Woolwich, where he joined the Royal Artillery, beginning what would be a lifelong commitment to serving his country. Woolwich, with its rigorous training and strict code, demanded high standards of both discipline and skill, which suited Dowding's meticulous nature. His time there not only honed his tactical abilities but also cemented his values of duty, perseverance, and careful planning. Though Dowding initially joined the cavalry, a prestigious division within the British Army, his curiosity for technology soon led him toward a different path. The early 20th century was a period of rapid technological progress, and aviation, a fledgling field at the time, captured his imagination. By 1913, Dowding had secured a transfer to the Royal Flying Corps, a new branch of the military focused on aerial warfare. This decision marked a turning point in his career, steering him toward the world of flight, where he would make his most significant contributions. In the Royal Flying Corps, Dowding trained as a pilot, mastering the skills required to control the early, often unreliable aircraft of the time. However, Dowding's commitment to aviation went beyond simply piloting planes. He recognized that this technology, still in its infancy, had the potential to change warfare dramatically. World War I soon confirmed his suspicions, as air reconnaissance and aerial combat proved essential to military strategy. The war offered him first-hand experience of the evolving role of aviation, giving him both a technical and strategic perspective on its uses and limitations. During the war, Dowding served in various roles, including as an instructor, where he trained young pilots, sharing his knowledge and his meticulous approach to safety and planning. He witnessed the brutal cost of war in the skies and the toll it took on those who piloted these early machines. These experiences reinforced his commitment to ensuring that air strategy was rooted in strong planning and efficient use of resources, a philosophy he would champion throughout his career. After World War I, as the Royal Flying Corps became the Royal Air Force (RAF), Dowding's skills and insights became increasingly valuable. He rose through the ranks, taking on various roles that allowed him to refine his approach to air defense. He focused on the logistics and technological aspects of the RAF, understanding that a well-prepared air defense was as much about organization and planning as it was about courage and skill. His work in radar development and fighter aircraft deployment would later prove indispensable, but during these early years, he was building the framework for an air defense strategy that was uniquely British in its method and meticulousness. Despite his growing responsibilities, Dowding's personality remained a complex mix of confidence and restraint. He was known for his analytical mind and strong convictions, yet he rarely sought approval or validation from others. His superiors sometimes saw him as difficult or unapproachable, but his peers recognized the depth of his knowledge and the reliability of his methods. This reputation for strict professionalism and reserved demeanor would follow him throughout his career, influencing both his successes and the challenges he would face within the military hierarchy. Dowding's personal life during these formative years was shaped by a strong sense of duty but also by sacrifice. His commitment to the RAF often came at the cost of personal relationships. In 1918, he married Clarice Maud Vancourt, and together they had a son, Derek. However, the demands of his military career placed significant strain on his family life, leading to a quiet separation. Dowding's approach to his career was uncompromising. He saw his role in the RAF not just as a job but as a calling, which he believed required his full attention. This devotion to duty, while making him an exceptional leader, also isolated him in some ways, creating a distance between him and those who might otherwise have been close to him. As the 1930s approached, Dowding's focus sharpened on what he perceived as an imminent threat: the growing power of Germany and the likelihood of another major conflict. He was promoted to key roles within the RAF, where he advocated tirelessly for resources to bolster Britain's air defenses. Unlike some of his contemporaries, Dowding was not content with simply preparing for conventional warfare. He believed in developing radar technology and strengthening the nation's network of fighter planes, foreseeing that these tools would be critical if Britain were to face an aerial assault. His insights and forward-thinking approach were not always popular, especially among those who viewed the role of air defense as secondary to offensive capabilities. Yet, Dowding remained steadfast, trusting his instincts and the technical knowledge he had accumulated over decades. As war loomed closer, Dowding's experience, strategic insight, and commitment to aerial defense made him an indispensable figure within the RAF. His early years of disciplined study, technical training, and battlefield experience had all converged to prepare him for the monumental task that lay ahead. Dowding's journey toward prominence within the RAF began in the early 1930s, as he advocated for forward-thinking defense strategies designed to counter potential aerial threats. At a time when military doctrines often prioritized offense, Dowding stood out by focusing on air defense. His foresight into the importance of a well-protected British airspace led him to push for a network defense approach, encompassing both technological advancements and effective communication systems. Dowding recognized that air combat had transformed since the First World War, and that Britain's survival would depend on a coordinated and highly responsive air defense system. He began by pinpointing key areas that required immediate investment: radar technology to detect enemy aircraft, a strong fleet of fighter planes to intercept threats, and an organized communication system that could coordinate responses in real time. Radar was relatively new and unfamiliar to most military leaders, but Dowding was quick to see its potential. He understood that radar could change the nature of defense by providing early warnings of incoming aircraft, enabling Britain to intercept threats before they reached critical areas. Dowding took an active role in collaborating with scientists, closely following the development of radar technology. His support was instrumental in the establishment of a national radar system across Britain, which eventually became known as the Chain Home System. This series of radar stations, positioned strategically along the coast, provided a line of defense that allowed the RAF to detect enemy planes while they were still far from British soil. By championing radar, Dowding not only introduced a new layer of security but also laid the groundwork for modern air defense systems. His advocacy for radar technology, initially met with skepticism, soon proved to be a cornerstone of Britain's strategy. In 1936, Dowding's appointment as head of RAF Fighter Command marked a new chapter in his career and in the RAF's approach to air defense. With this role, Dowding was given the authority to shape Fighter Command according to his strategic vision. He immediately set about reorganizing the RAF's operational strategies, establishing a structured defense system focused on intercepting and repelling enemy aircraft. Dowding divided Fighter Command into several groups and sectors, each responsible for a specific region, to ensure coverage and allow for a rapid response to any threat. This sector-based approach allowed for the efficient use of resources and enabled Fighter Command to operate as a well-coordinated unit. Communication became a top priority for Dowding, who recognized that only through effective command and control could Fighter Command hope to respond swiftly to attacks. His reorganization efforts paid off, creating a streamlined structure that allowed Fighter Command to perform effectively in high-stakes situations. Dowding's vision for a robust defense system was incomplete without advanced aircraft and well-trained pilots. Understanding that the RAF's success would depend on the quality of its equipment and personnel, he pushed for the development of cutting-edge aircraft models, notably the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane. These fighters, renowned for their speed and maneuverability, would later prove critical in the Battle of Britain. Dowding did not merely focus on acquiring new planes, he was equally concerned with pilot preparation. He championed rigorous training programs, emphasizing skill and precision over sheer numbers. Dowding believed that each pilot needed to be exceptionally well prepared to handle the pressures of combat, and his emphasis on quality training contributed to the high performance and morale of RAF pilots. By the time Britain was thrust into war, the RAF's fighter force was equipped with both advanced aircraft and highly capable pilots, thanks largely to Dowding's dedication. Dowding's journey to prominence was not without obstacles. He often faced opposition from military and political leaders who prioritized offensive tactics or were skeptical of his focus on air defense. Dowding's ideas about conserving resources, including planes and pilots, for defensive purposes sometimes clashed with the prevailing belief that Britain's air strategy should be more aggressive. Many in the military believed that offense was the best form of defense, and Dowding's cautious approach was, at times, seen as overly conservative. Despite this opposition, Dowding held firm in his convictions, defending his strategies in meetings and making a strong case for the necessity of a dedicated air defense. His resolve was tested as political pressures mounted, especially from figures who underestimated the threat of German air power. However, Dowding's unwavering stance gradually won support, especially as tensions in Europe escalated and the possibility of an aerial assault became more apparent. His resilience and commitment to his vision eventually positioned him as a key leader within the RAF. As war became inevitable, Dowding accelerated his preparations, further refining the organizational structure and implementing protocols that would enable Britain to mobilize its air defenses swiftly. He established procedures for air raid alerts, set up systems for assessing the readiness of fighter command units, and ensured that communication lines were clear and reliable. Dowding's early recognition of the likelihood of German air assaults led him to advocate for improvements in both technology and infrastructure. His preparations placed Britain in a state of readiness by the time the war officially began, and this foresight proved invaluable when the RAF was called upon to defend against waves of attacks. Dowding's organizational efforts, coupled with his emphasis on a coordinated response, allowed Fighter Command to mobilize rapidly, providing Britain with a defensive edge that would soon be tested in the Battle of Britain. Throughout the war, Dowding continued to balance limited resources with the pressing demands of defense. He made difficult decisions about the allocation of aircraft and personnel, carefully weighing the needs of different regions and keeping a reserve force ready for emergencies. Dowding's approach was often cautious, as he understood that Britain's ability to withstand a sustained air campaign would depend on long-term resource management. He advocated for the conservation of planes and pilots, believing that a reckless use of resources could jeopardize Britain's defenses. This cautious stance sometimes put him at odds with other commanders who favored immediate, aggressive retaliation. However, Dowding's strategic restraint was ultimately beneficial, allowing Fighter Command to endure the prolonged conflict without depleting its resources prematurely. His careful balancing of resources ensured that Britain remained resilient throughout the intense aerial battles of the early war years. As the war intensified, Dowding's leadership at Fighter Command became increasingly recognized as Britain's defense efforts took center stage. His strategic planning and steady leadership allowed the RAF to prepare effectively for the oncoming threat of the German Luftwaffe. Dowding's reputation as a capable and measured leader solidified during this time, making him one of the most respected figures in Britain's military. His work in developing radar systems, organizing Fighter Command, and training pilots positioned Britain to face the Luftwaffe with a well-coordinated and highly prepared air force. As the Battle of Britain loomed, Dowding's contributions became apparent, not only in the structural readiness of Fighter Command but also in the morale and determination of the RAF personnel under his command. Dowding's role during the war highlighted his strategic foresight and leadership as Britain faced increasingly intense and complex aerial battles. The early days of the war saw a significant escalation in Germany's aggression, culminating in a series of air assaults that marked the start of what would become known as the Battle of Britain. Dowding's strategic groundwork and organizational skills would be put to the test during these pivotal events. The Battle of Britain commenced in earnest as the German Luftwaffe sought to eliminate the Royal Air Force and achieve air superiority over Britain. Dowding's planning and command style focused on efficiency, resource conservation, and quick response. This approach allowed Fighter Command to withstand relentless waves of enemy attacks. Under Dowding's leadership, RAF pilots engaged in grueling daily missions, intercepting German bombers and fighters with a limited yet powerful force of Hurricanes and Spitfires. One of Dowding's defining strategic decisions during the battle was his focus on high-value targets. He prioritized defending essential infrastructure and cities, often choosing to protect Britain's industrial and military centers over other areas that might have drawn enemy fire. This choice was sometimes controversial, with some military leaders questioning his refusal to engage more aggressively. Dowding's approach, however, centered on sustaining the RAF's capacity over time, recognizing that prolonged defense would exhaust German resources and preserve Britain's own. The big-winged controversy became a particularly tense chapter in Dowding's leadership. This conflict centered on a difference in tactical opinion between Dowding and Air Vice Marshal Trafford Leigh-Mallory, who advocated for deploying large formations of planes, or big wings, to counterattack Luftwaffe formations en masse. Dowding, however, believed in a more flexible, sector-based defense that allowed for quicker and more localized response times. He argued that forming big wings required time and coordination, leaving regions vulnerable to enemy assault while large formations assembled. Despite facing pressure from within the RAF and from political leaders, Dowding stood by his strategy, prioritizing immediate response and localized defense to maximize efficiency and conserve resources. Dowding's tactics during the Battle of Britain emphasized a unique balance of caution and effectiveness. He was aware that each plane and pilot represented a critical asset. His decisions reflected a deep understanding of the importance of long-term resilience over short-term gains. While other commanders criticized his refusal to engage the enemy more aggressively, Dowding's strategies ultimately allowed fighter command to survive the battle, often turning the tide through precision and careful resource management. During the height of the Battle of Britain, Dowding's commitment to the radar network and sector operations proved invaluable. Radar stations along the coast enabled RAF Fighter Command to detect incoming German planes with enough time to prepare and intercept. Dowding's foresight in establishing this defensive network allowed the RAF to concentrate their forces efficiently, responding to attacks as they happened. Radar provided Britain with an unprecedented level of situational awareness, making it possible to manage resources effectively while minimizing unnecessary risks. The pressure on Dowding intensified as the German offensive continued. His reserved approach and focus on resource management clashed with the desires of some political and military leaders who pushed for more aggressive tactics. Dowding faced scrutiny for his decisions and was criticized by some as overly cautious, yet his commitment to Britain's defense remained unwavering. His approach, although conservative in some aspects, ultimately contributed to Britain's success, as the RAF endured and successfully countered the Luftwaffe's onslaught, leading to a pivotal turning point in the war. Despite his successes, Dowding's tenure was marred by political tension and disagreements with senior figures within the RAF and government. As the intensity of the Battle of Britain subsided, discussions around future strategies surfaced. Many leaders within the RAF sought more aggressive approaches, questioning Dowding's emphasis on conservation. The big wing advocates gained traction, and Dowding found himself increasingly isolated. His steadfast commitment to his tactical beliefs, while effective, alienated some of his peers, setting the stage for his eventual dismissal from Fighter Command. In November 1940, Dowding was replaced as head of Fighter Command. The decision, influenced by both internal disagreements and political factors, ended Dowding's direct involvement in the RAF's air defense efforts. While his replacement marked a significant change within the RAF, Dowding's contributions had already left a lasting legacy on British air defense. His strategies, his push for radar technology, and his organizational skills had equipped Britain with the resources and structure needed to continue its defense against the Luftwaffe. Dowding's influence extended beyond his official tenure. The structure and systems he implemented within Fighter Command continued to serve Britain well throughout the war. His emphasis on coordination, resource management, and technological integration became a model for modern air defense. Although he no longer held command, Dowding's vision remained embedded within the RAF, guiding future leaders in their efforts to protect Britain's skies. After his departure, Dowding received recognition for his contributions, though not without lingering controversies. Some viewed him as a visionary who had single-handedly shaped Britain's air defense strategy, while others saw him as a cautious figure whose unwillingness to adopt aggressive tactics had limited the RAF's potential. Over time, however, Dowding's impact became widely acknowledged, and his role in Britain's defense efforts during the Battle of Britain was celebrated as one of the defining factors in the Allied victory. In the years following the war, Dowding's legacy continued to grow. He became a respected figure within British military history, often regarded as the man whose strategies enabled Britain to withstand one of the most formidable aerial campaigns in history. His leadership and decisions during the Battle of Britain were studied and praised, and his emphasis on radar technology and structured defense came to be seen as revolutionary. In later years, Dowding was recognized for his contributions, receiving various honors and awards. His work became a foundational part of RAF history, and his strategic innovations influenced generations of air defense leaders. The Battle of Britain reached its most intense phase in the summer and fall of 1940, and Dowding's strategic decisions came under scrutiny as Britain faced an unprecedented aerial assault. The Luftwaffe's aim was to destroy the Royal Air Force and pave the way for a German invasion. As the battle raged on, Dowding's leadership was tested, with both his strategic choices and his command style being constantly evaluated by military officials, politicians, and his own subordinates. It was during this period that Dowding's true leadership qualities emerged, as well as the challenges that would ultimately lead to his downfall. One of the central components of Dowding's approach was his focus on air defense through a combination of radar technology, trained pilots, and well-structured sector systems. As the German Luftwaffe increased their attacks, Dowding relied heavily on the radar network that had been established under his direction, a system that was instrumental in giving early warning of incoming raids. The radar stations were placed along Britain's coast, allowing for rapid detection of enemy formations and precise coordination of defensive responses. Dowding's foresight in advocating for the development of radar was vindicated as the technology allowed Britain to respond more effectively to the Luftwaffe's constant bombardment. However, despite the advantages of radar, the sheer number of German aircraft that swarmed the skies presented a massive challenge for Dowding's forces. Fighter command, though successful in its intercepts, was constantly stretched thin, with aircraft and pilots being used at maximum capacity. This created a dilemma for Dowding: how to balance the demands of an immediate defense against the need to conserve valuable resources for a protracted conflict. Dowding's approach was always about the long term, conserving aircraft and pilots, and avoiding unnecessary losses. This cautious, calculated strategy, while effective in many ways, came under fire from those who wanted more aggressive tactics, particularly from Air Vice Marshal Trafford Leigh-Mallory and other senior commanders within the RAF. They advocated for large-scale formations of aircraft to attack the Luftwaffe more directly, a method known as the big wing tactic. Dowding, however, resisted these proposals, believing they were inefficient and would lead to unnecessary losses of aircraft. As the summer progressed, the pressure mounted on Dowding to adopt a more aggressive approach, particularly as the Luftwaffe shifted its tactics, focusing on bombing British cities in an attempt to break the morale of the civilian population. The bombing raids, which began to target key industrial centers and cities like London, created a sense of urgency within the government and military leadership. Politicians and senior military officials who had previously supported Dowding's strategies now began to demand faster results. The notion that Britain could withstand the sustained attacks seemed increasingly unlikely without a decisive shift in strategy. Despite the mounting pressure, Dowding stood firm in his belief that the RAF should remain focused on intercepting and destroying enemy aircraft rather than launching large-scale counterattacks against German forces. As the battle entered its final stages, the Luftwaffe began to suffer significant losses. The RAF's defense had proven to be more resilient than initially expected, thanks in large part to Dowding's management of resources and his emphasis on training and readiness. However, the continued strain on fighter command was becoming unsustainable. Pilots were being rotated in and out of combat to prevent exhaustion, and aircraft were in constant need of repair. The toll on fighter command's resources, combined with the growing political pressure, created a volatile situation that ultimately led to the climactic moment of Dowding's tenure. In October 1940, Dowding faced a critical decision regarding the defense of London. The city had become a primary target for the Luftwaffe, and the threat of a full-scale invasion loomed. Dowding's calm, strategic mind again came to the forefront, as he chose to concentrate the remaining resources in defending London. This decision, while tactically sound, had long-term consequences. The increased demands on fighter command left the RAF vulnerable to the exhaustion of its pilots and aircraft. This would ultimately play into the political and military pressure that led to Dowding's removal. The climax of Dowding's leadership occurred in November 1940, when, despite his critical role in the defense of Britain, Dowding was replaced as the head of fighter command. The reasons behind his removal were complex, involving both strategic disagreements and political considerations. Dowding's cautious approach, though effective in the long run, was seen as too conservative by some of his superiors. The failure to fully embrace the big wing strategy, along with a constant drain on resources, led to a growing sense of dissatisfaction with Dowding's leadership. The political environment also played a significant role, with various officials seeking a more aggressive posture towards the war effort. Ultimately, Dowding's removal was a reflection of the challenges faced by military leaders during a time of unprecedented crisis. After his removal from fighter command, Dowding's legacy continued to evolve. His strategies during the Battle of Britain had helped to secure Britain's survival in the face of the Luftwaffe's onslaught, and his advocacy for radar and improved air defense systems laid the foundation for modern air warfare. While Dowding's leadership during the climax of the battle was undoubtedly instrumental in Britain's success, the pressures of the war, the constant need for quick victories, and the shifting political landscape all contributed to the challenges he faced. Dowding's story serves as a powerful reminder of the complex interplay between military leadership, strategy, and political dynamics in times of conflict. The climax of Dowding's career not only marked a turning point in the war, but also solidified his reputation as one of Britain's greatest military leaders. Despite the controversies surrounding his removal, Dowding's legacy endured long after the war, and his contributions to air defense and military strategy continued to shape British defense policies for years to come. After Dowding's removal from command in late 1940, his career and his life entered a new phase marked by both resolution and decline. This section will explore the aftermath of his removal, the challenges he faced as he adapted to a new role, and the impact of his military service on his later years. The period following his departure from fighter command saw Dowding's legacy come under increasing scrutiny, even as his contributions to the Battle of Britain and air defense remained a cornerstone of Britain's war effort. In the years following his departure from fighter command, Dowding remained a respected figure within military circles, but his reputation was clouded by the political dynamics that led to his removal. He faced the challenge of reconciling his personal feelings about his ousting with his continuing commitment to the defense of Britain. Despite the disappointments, Dowding's character and professionalism remained evident in the way he carried himself during this time. Rather than retreating from public life, he continued to be involved in various defense initiatives, and his input remained valued by those who recognized the crucial role he played in the RAF's success. Following his removal, Dowding was reassigned to the post of Air Member for Supply and Organization in 1940. While this was a significant position within the Royal Air Force, it lacked the prominence and direct influence that his previous command had afforded him. The new role required a more bureaucratic focus on logistics, resources, and planning, rather than direct command over military operations. Despite the relatively low profile of this role, Dowding threw himself into his work, committed to the success of the RAF in any way he could contribute. It was here that his organizational skills and keen sense of strategy continued to play a vital role in supporting the broader war effort. As the war progressed, Dowding's position continued to diminish in importance. Although his expertise was still sought after, especially in matters of air defense, his influence within the RAF was not what it once had been. Many of the officers who had once worked under him in fighter command were now in key positions throughout the military, and some of them began to question his methods and decisions, particularly his resistance to the more aggressive tactics that had gained favor among his peers. As the war expanded and the RAF became increasingly involved in offensive operations, Dowding's preference for defensive strategies seemed more out of step with the broader direction of the war. Despite his more limited role, Dowding's post-war reputation remained strong among many of his peers. His role in the Battle of Britain remained his most notable achievement, and he continued to be regarded as a visionary leader who had recognized the importance of air defense at a time when it was often dismissed by others. However, in the post-war years, Dowding found himself increasingly at odds with the direction of the military, particularly as Britain shifted its focus toward post-war reconstruction and the growing influence of the United States in global affairs. His earlier advocacy for independent British air defense clashed with the changing geopolitics of the post-war world, as NATO and the Cold War redefined the nature of military alliances and defense strategy. Dowding's contributions to air defense continued to be acknowledged, but they were often overshadowed by the achievements of other wartime leaders and the post-war reshaping of the RAF. His own reflections on the war and his role within it became more personal and introspective, and he began to feel the weight of the years and the complexities of his career. As the years passed, he grew more reclusive, less involved in public affairs, and began to withdraw from the political battles that had once shaped his career. The loss of his command during the height of the war continued to affect him, and his later years were marked by a sense of resignation. Dowding's final years were a time of reflection and quieter engagements. Despite the frustrations he had experienced in his later military career, he continued to be an advocate for the lessons learned during the Battle of Britain, especially regarding the importance of radar and air defense systems. As the years went on, he saw the military landscape change dramatically, with new technologies and strategies emerging that had once been the subject of his foresight. His contributions to radar technology and his insistence on its importance were eventually acknowledged in official circles, as radar became a fundamental part of modern defense strategies. However, the weight of the years, coupled with his declining health, made it increasingly difficult for Dowding to continue his active involvement in defense matters. He retired from public life and spent his final years living quietly, far from the political fray that had characterized much of his career. Despite the challenges and setbacks of his later years, Dowding remained a figure of historical significance. His role in the Battle of Britain continued to be studied and appreciated, and his legacy lived on through the air defense systems that he had helped establish. Dowding passed away in 1970, leaving behind a complex and multifaceted legacy. While his career had been marked by both triumph and disappointment, his contributions to the defense of Britain during World War II ensured that he would be remembered as one of the key figures in the country's survival during the darkest days of the war. His insistence on the importance of air defense, his advocacy for radar technology, and his leadership in fighter command remained pivotal in the outcome of the Battle of Britain. Despite his removal from command, Dowding's strategic foresight and commitment to the safety of Britain's skies continued to be recognized long after the war ended. In the years following his death, Dowding's legacy continued to be debated, with some questioning his leadership during the war's final stages and others lauding his foresight and vision. Nonetheless, his role in the Battle of Britain and the air defense systems that he championed remained an essential part of British military history. Today, Dowding is remembered not just for his leadership during a critical period in British history, but for his unwavering commitment to the defense of Britain, his understanding of the evolving nature of warfare, and his contributions to the development of modern air defense systems that would shape military strategy for decades to come. Hugh Dowding's legacy remains a significant part of British military history, particularly for his visionary leadership during the Battle of Britain and his pioneering role in air defense strategies. As the architect behind the development of radar technology and the organization of fighter command, Dowding's contributions shaped the Royal Air Force, RAF, and more broadly, the future of air defense worldwide. His influence extended far beyond the Battle of Britain, impacting the strategic direction of the RAF during World War II and laying the groundwork for modern air defense systems. Dowding's work during the Battle of Britain has been described as pivotal. He introduced innovative tactics and technologies that fundamentally changed the way air battles were fought. His insistence on the importance of radar and early warning systems allowed the RAF to anticipate German air raids, giving pilots a crucial advantage in defending British skies. Without Dowding's foresight and leadership, Britain's victory in the Battle of Britain may have been far less certain. The integration of radar into Britain's defense infrastructure marked a turning point in military strategy, not only in Britain but across the globe. Dowding's commitment to this technology remains one of his most lasting and influential contributions. The structure and tactics Dowding implemented within the RAF Fighter Command also left a lasting impact. By organizing the RAF into specialized groups and sectors, Dowding improved the efficiency of the air defense system and ensured that every available resource could be directed where it was needed most. His focus on communication, coordination, and rapid response allowed for a well-organized defense effort, despite the enormous pressure placed on the RAF during the intense aerial assault from the German Luftwaffe. This organizational structure proved to be one of the key factors in the RAF's success during the Battle of Britain and served as a model for military defense operations in the years that followed. Another crucial aspect of Dowding's legacy was his approach to leadership and decision-making. Unlike many military leaders of the time, Dowding took a methodical and pragmatic approach to warfare. He understood the importance of managing limited resources and was willing to make difficult decisions to preserve those resources for the long-term defense of Britain. His careful management of aircraft and personnel ensured that the RAF could maintain a sustained defense against the German Luftwaffe throughout the Battle of Britain and beyond. Dowding's emphasis on sustainability and strategic resource allocation contributed significantly to the RAF's ability to weather the long months of aerial combat that defined the early stages of World War II. Despite facing political opposition and challenges from fellow military leaders who favored more aggressive tactics, Dowding's unwavering commitment to his strategic vision solidified his place in history. His ability to resist external pressures and stay focused on the broader goal of national defense speaks to his resilience as a leader. Dowding's leadership style was not without its critics, and his decisions, particularly his cautious approach to offensive operations, often led to tension with others in command. Nevertheless, his legacy is largely one of foresight, innovation, and an unyielding dedication to the protection of Britain. After the war, Dowding's contributions continued to influence air defense strategies. The radar systems that he championed became a core component of military air defense worldwide, with many nations adopting similar systems. His insistence on the importance of air defense as a critical element of national security shaped the direction of military policy in the years following World War II. In the Cold War era, Dowding's legacy influenced air defense strategies across the Western world, as nations recognized the growing importance of radar and advanced aviation technologies in preventing aerial threats. Dowding's impact was also felt within the RAF itself. His organizational changes, focus on training, and emphasis on operational efficiency became hallmarks of the RAF's approach to air defense. In the years after the Battle of Britain, the RAF continued to adapt and refine the strategies that Dowding had introduced. His insistence on quality training for pilots ensured that the RAF could maintain a high level of proficiency, even in the face of intense wartime pressures. The ability to respond swiftly and efficiently to enemy threats was a legacy that endured long after Dowding's retirement from active service. His influence extended beyond the military as well. Dowding's work in radar development and air defense helped lay the foundation for technological advancements in civilian aviation and air traffic control. The radar systems developed during his time in fighter command became essential tools for both military and civilian air travel, ensuring the safety of aircraft across the globe. The importance of radar technology in modern aviation cannot be overstated, and Dowding's early advocacy for its use was instrumental in its widespread adoption. In the post-war years, Dowding's name became synonymous with innovation in air defense, and his legacy continued to be celebrated in military and aviation circles. Although his removal from command during the height of the war may have clouded his post-war career, his contributions to Britain's defense efforts were eventually recognized, and his role in the RAF's success during the Battle of Britain was firmly cemented. As historians and military analysts reflected on the strategies employed during the war, Dowding's leadership was increasingly seen as a defining factor in Britain's survival during its darkest hours. Dowding's personal life and character also contributed to his lasting impact. Known for his calm demeanor, intellect, and ability to think strategically, Dowding earned the respect of those who worked with him. His modesty, even in the face of his many accomplishments, was a trait that endeared him to his colleagues and subordinates alike. His ability to maintain composure in the face of immense pressure and his unwavering commitment to the defense of Britain inspired those who served under his command. Even after his death in 1970, Dowding's influence continued to shape military and air defense policy. His vision for an integrated air defense system, reliant on both human resources and advanced technology, remains a cornerstone of modern military strategy. Dowding's legacy lives on in the principles he established, which continue to guide the development of air defense strategies and technologies in the modern era. In summary, Hugh Dowding's legacy is defined by his pioneering vision for air defense, his leadership during the Battle of Britain, and his commitment to strategic resource management. His work in radar technology, organizational structure, and tactical planning helped shape the course of the war and left a lasting imprint on the future of air defense. Dowding's contributions continue to be felt not only within the military but also in the fields of aviation and technology. His name remains synonymous with innovation, resilience, and foresight, and his impact on both military strategy and national defense endures as one of the key elements of Britain's victory during World War II. Hugh Dowding's legacy is firmly established as one of the most significant figures in military history, particularly for his leadership during the Battle of Britain. His innovative approach to air defense, commitment to the integration of radar technology, and ability to maintain a steady hand in the face of immense pressure were instrumental in shaping the course of World War II and the future of military strategy. As the architect of the Royal Air Force's air defense system, Dowding's strategic vision transformed Britain's ability to respond to aerial threats. His foresight in championing radar technology and developing an organized, systematic approach to air defense not only saved Britain during the Battle of Britain, but also had far-reaching implications for air defense systems worldwide. Dowding's insistence on the importance of early warning systems, alongside his innovative use of fighter aircraft, was pivotal in ensuring Britain's survival during a time when the outcome of the war hung in the balance. The organizational structure Dowding implemented within Fighter Command was also a defining feature of his leadership. His ability to create a system that enabled rapid response to enemy attacks, even under the most intense conditions, became a model for military defense efforts in the years that followed. By maintaining a focus on communication and coordination, Dowding allowed the RAF to maximize its limited resources and effectively manage the pressure of constant aerial assaults. Dowding's leadership was not without challenges. Throughout his career, he faced opposition from other military leaders and political figures who advocated for more aggressive strategies. His preference for caution and careful resource management often led to tensions within the military hierarchy, but his ability to stand firm in his convictions ultimately proved to be a major strength. His success demonstrated the value of thoughtful, methodical leadership in a time of crisis, and his tactical decisions helped to shape the RAF's victory over the Luftwaffe. His impact extended far beyond the events of the Battle of Britain. The technologies he championed, particularly radar, became essential components of military air defense and civilian aviation in the years following the war. Dowding's strategic focus on technological innovation laid the groundwork for advancements in both military and civilian air traffic control, making air travel safer and more efficient in the decades that followed. In addition to his contributions to military strategy and technology, Dowding's leadership style left a lasting impression on those who worked with him. Known for his calm demeanor and intellectual approach to problem-solving, Dowding earned the respect of his colleagues and subordinates. His ability to maintain focus on the long-term goal of national defense, even in the face of enormous pressure, set him apart as a leader of remarkable resilience. Despite facing considerable political setbacks after the Battle of Britain, Dowding's legacy endured. His role in the RAF's success during the early years of World War II gradually earned the recognition it deserved, and his contributions became central to the historical understanding of the Battle of Britain. Even after his retirement, Dowding's influence continued to shape military thought and strategy, with his methods and innovations influencing the development of air defense systems in the post-war period. Today, Dowding is remembered not only as a military leader but also as a visionary who saw the potential of technology and strategic planning in defending Britain against the threat of invasion. His contributions to the development of radar technology, his organizational innovations, and his calm leadership during a time of extreme crisis remain defining aspects of his legacy. Hugh Dowding's story is one of foresight, resilience, and ingenuity. His leadership during one of the most critical periods in history helped shape the outcome of World War II, ensuring Britain's ability to withstand the aerial onslaught from Nazi Germany. Dowding's strategic innovations and his emphasis on effective resource management provided a blueprint for military defense systems and air defense technologies that continue to serve as models in the modern era. His place in history as a key figure in Britain's defense efforts is secure, and his legacy continues to inspire military leaders and strategists around the world.